Yes, indeedy. Welcome to the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, BrkSci, and this is episode number 32, coming at you live and direct from Isolation Station in the Sierra Nevada foothills of Northern California. And I've been waiting a long time to roll this one out, fam. So grateful you are tuning in. And we're back on the Upful Life Podcast, episode 32, Isolation Station, volume 4. And this podcast is proudly brought to you by Path to Panacea Tea, or Luminosity. Path to Panacea.com. PATHTOPANACEA.com. Path to Panacea, or Path, the number 2, Panacea on Instagram. You can also find and shop Path to Panacea Luminosity on Etsy, so check out the Etsy shop. They just rolled out some fantastic new immune boosting tea blends. The herbs are delightful infused as tea, but will also include instructions for making your own botanical medicines for the do-it-yourselfers out there, and great gifts for loved ones near and far. And as I mentioned last week, essential due to the current coronavirus and attention to our immune systems. This is just right on time. So you can check out the menu on their Etsy page. The blends are Immunity, Respiratory Revival, Inhale Love, Exhale Gratitude, Wellness Wonderment, Sea Bomba, and the lettuce-inspired Vibe Up. Now, Path to Panacea is run by my lovely fiancée Alicia. She's a certified holistic nutritionist and a consultant, real food educator, and she's been on a mission with Path to Panacea to enhance the vitality of future generations by empowering families to explore positive practices, producing more mindful, adventurous eating habits to cultivate a lifetime of health. Path to Panacea, y'all. And we're back here on the Upful Life Podcast, episode 32, Isolation Station, volume 4. I want to thank all of my previous guests over the last few episodes on the Isolation Station series for taking time out of their quarantine and their routine to check in with the Upful Life Podcast and share their stories. The feedback from the past couple episodes has been wonderful. Last week, the live stream 101 was really well received, and I want to thank again everybody who texted, emailed, purchased tea from Path to Panacea, shared the pod, commented online, on social, etc. You can reach me, BrkSci, at upfullife.com, by email, b.getz, G-E-T-Z, at upfullife.com. Send me any feedback, constructive criticism, suggestions, or Irie vibes. Encouraged. Also encourage, rate and review the podcast if you wouldn't mind or so have the time and are so inclined. On iTunes and Apple Podcasts, rate and review. It goes a long way to pushing people to the algorithms that find their way to the Upful Life Podcast. So big up to everybody who has done that thus far. It is much appreciated. And with that, we'll move into this week's episode, which is, as you well know, the Adam Deitch Birthday Extravaganza. Now, it's no secret to anyone who's listened to this show or is just aware of some of the work I've done in the music media that lettuce is my religion. The band Lettuce is just everything to me in all the ways. And, I'm a words guy, but I actually struggled to figure out how I was going to introduce and bring this episode in because, I'm up here in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas where I lived for roughly 5 years before I moved to Oakland, and it was during those 5 years working on the farms and in the gardens that I dreamt up the Upful Life Podcast, and when I did so, most often the guest was one Adam Deitch. Adam has been my favorite artist in music for a long time now, and dating back to when I first, started to see Lettuce regularly, which was around 2008 and 9, beginning with the Bear Creek experience. So shout to my man Otis, who I know listens to the show. He brought me to Bear Creek for the first time. He introduced me to Paul the Wolf, Paul Levine, who threw Bear Creek and is instrumental in Halloween and Purple Hatter's Ball, and Paul, and of course Whitney Wangsgard, who was worked for Paul at the time and then was later tour manager to Lettuce and has gone on to major things in the industry. Those two people really opened the door for me to first cover Lettuce in a really up-close and intimate fashion, cover them in the media, write about them, share their music, and then of course through that work I have been blessed to befriend the band, and I count each and every one of them and many of their crew and staff as close personal friends, and you'll probably be able to figure that out when you listen to this pod. So, music is what makes all of us tick. It's what brings us together, and this is my favorite music and musician. It's his birthday, and we are going to celebrate that shit on the Upful Life Podcast, episode 32. So I hope it's okay to be a little excited and bring some real exuberant, positive vibes to the airwaves. I know so many people are struggling. People are dying. There's widespread suffering. So let this podcast be a beacon of light and just instill folks with that good vibe, and hopefully it can be in service to people who need to hear it. Not just Lettuce fans and Adam Deitch fans, but members of the music culture around the globe. So with that, I'll let you know. We've got Adam Deitch, then we've got his parents, Bobby and Denise Deitch, and then we've got RYAN ZOIDIS from Lettuce and Adam Deitch Quartet and often BrkSci Live Band. So, stacked lineup for you today. Episode 32, the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, and up next, the one and only Adam Deitch.
What's up, boss?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. We wrote this like Tower Power kind of tune, and I was like, let me see if we can get Emilio Castillo to sing on this and get like the Tower Power horns on it with our guys, And I had Ivory hook it up, and he hooked it up. So I sent him the demo, and Emilio loves it, man. He's like, this is the shit. And he already wrote the tune already. Like, I sent him at 6 a.m. By 3 o'clock, he's got it done,
Damn, that's incredible.
Yeah, dude. So, and then we have the song we're going to do with Bootsy, and we got the song we're going to do with Maceo. So it's going to be like, like tribute to the greats, with the greats,
Seriously, that's unbelievable that that's coming together like that. What's the Bootsy thing?
The Bootsy thing is something he was on Instagram, and he was saying, you know, we got to work hard now in these times to you know, to do more, you know, to make more music and make the best music of our lives. And he goes, what you got to do is keep that funk alive. You got to keep that funk alive. He just said it like 4 times, right? So I sampled that off of Instagram and wrote this like crazy funk thing to it that is going to be so, it's already like the funkiest thing we've ever done. So then we're going to get Bootsy to redo the vocals on it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So this whole little like quarantine, let us works with their heroes thing is like coming together, you know?
That's beautiful on like a cultural sense. And of course, it's got to be just fill you up with joy that, you know, you get to collab with the people that inspired you to do this.
Yeah. I mean, Emilio just called me, bro. Like, I'm the biggest power head in the world. Like, you know, and he remembers me from AWB. He's like, I remember you. I had my eye on you. You know?
Oh my goodness, man. So he's been following you for like, you know, 25 years.
Yeah, he knew. He just didn't know about Lettuce. He hadn't really heard us, you know. He's like busy doing his thing and, you know, family and gigs. But he heard us on this demo I sent because it's all of us playing, you know, like, and he was like, holy shit, you know.
That's fire.
So,
man.
Yeah, it's super fire. So I'm like floating right now. I'm like, I'm in the best mood ever.
I'm glad that I'm getting you at this time, man. That's awesome time to chat with you about the future. And of course, you know,
totally,
you're my guy. I'm a huge fan of everything you do and Lettuce, Break Science, etc. So I wanted to just like touch base with you on how you're doing and what you're doing with regards. You got 2 releases in the pipeline. Let's start with Lettuce.
Resonate. Yeah, Resonate's where it's at. Super excited to drop this. It's like, you know, if you think of the Star Wars trilogy, you know, Empire Strikes Back, it gave everybody the chills. It has that vibe, you know, and like I feel like this is like you know, it's like the second of the trilogy of this records with Russ Elevato, you know.
Yeah.
So man, it's a major feeling to, you know, because this was our second time mixing with him, and we mixed it in New York, you know. So we had this like a really good time mixing the shit with him. And, you know, the songs are more powerful, and we got that Earth, Wind, and Fire cover, which is a rare cover on there, which is I can't wait for people to hear, you know, Save the Children. And, yeah, I mean, like, just we can't wait for people to hear Resonate.
Yeah, the fans have been, you know, really excited since the news came out that you're going to release it in the first week of May. And, yeah, just for the people that don't know, like, Russell Elevato is somebody that you admired for a long time and always in the back of your mind hoped to work with him. And now you've got him on board for what you describe as a 3-album trilogy.
Yeah.
What about working with Russ? Like, what do you love about it?
I mean, you know, when he stops, you know, the mixing process in the middle of it, of the, you know, whenever he gets a little bit, you know, when he's focusing too much on the mix, he'll stop and then he'll play us D'Angelo bootlegs that no one's heard. And he'll play us like, you know, Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Super loud, you know, for all of us to really, and we sit there and we listen to it with him, you know, like, and then he'll play us like some Erykah Badu stuff that we never heard, or some Roy Hargrove live shows that he mixed that no one heard. Like, he's got all this amazing vaults of music that only he has. The records that he listens to, he converted them from vinyl to digital himself through this amazing process. So you're hearing these records for the first time, and so it's like being in class, you know. It's like you just a constant learning process, and then you go back to mixing your song, and you have this wider perspective of how you should do the mix, you know, and how you should make the stuff sound. So by taking those breaks, he's just like enlightening us to the world of sonics and how to make things better. So it's like it was like a master class, you know, and it was worth every second.
Yeah, it's a match made in heaven. I mean, he's been a part of so many of my favorite records historically, and to have him at the boards for this. It's just such a blessing, and you can hear it. And I mean, Elevate was very celebrated. It was nominated for a Grammy. And I wanted to ask, so what is different, or how did you, in essence, up the ante with Resonate? You mentioned it's more powerful, and how did Resonate sort of turn the page to the next chapter?
We just felt more comfortable. We tracked all the stuff at the same time, but I feel like this group of songs really fits well together. And I feel like the mix, we got even more creative and started doing a bunch of creative things and psychedelic things in the mix to make it really, stand out. So it's just, it's a more developed and kind of situation where it's just feeling really good, And
I understand that you write a majority of the music. What's the process like? So you sort of track it out and then you distribute it and everyone does their part. What's the nuts and bolts of the Voltron for Resonate?
I mean, it all starts with like the shows and us playing, Shmeens and Jesus going off on some riff out of nowhere. That totally blows me away because they just wrote it and then they forgot it. We get off stage and they don't remember it. So I go back to the bootlegs, the recordings, of the shows, and I find all these moments where they just made stuff up, and then I'll take those ideas and write something off of that. And then I send them a demo and they're like, "Oh, this is eerily familiar." I'm like, "Yeah, because you guys thought of this, So that's how I write, and I just kind of like do stick figure demos just for them to like, hear how it became a song form and not just, a groove. And I'll maybe throw a melody on it, something that is very Zoidis or very Benny, and then they get it and then they go, "That's great, but let's try this and try that and try this." And then we have a tune. So that's the way all these tunes came about.
Right on. Yeah.
Except for the James Brown one. That one was a total improvised jam in the studio.
But it's like a dead ringer for classic JBs.
Yeah, it's like a classic old school da 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 da. Yeah, that song is totally improvised in the studio with everybody there. But everything else besides the cover was kind of written in that way.
And it's almost like reverse engineering a hip hop process where you're almost like sampling riffs and grooves of your bandmates.
Absolutely. Like they just, they when they were playing, they just somehow just come up with these things live if they're inspired, And I took it as my job to kind of write songs off of that, and like use that as the inspiration to create new music and write new tunes, So, it's a total band thing, like I couldn't write all this stuff without these guys being, so amazing at improvising, a type of, riff or a groove or something like that, or a melody or a horn line or whatever it is, keyboard line or something,
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's such a wide diversity of, in essence, the sound or the styles. Like you can't pigeonhole you guys as a funk band anymore. I really am excited to hear the studio renditions of Silence is Golden and House of Let. And they couldn't be more different songs. You guys have just really kicked down the barriers of like what genres are and like what's okay for what kind of band.
Right. Totally. I mean, the rhythm is infinite, and, the like tempos and grooves from everything from like electronic music, like house music, dubstep, trap, to like, Afrobeat and reggae and like, there's millions of grooves all over the world. And it's my job as the drummer to kind of like bring in these sort of beats that we haven't done yet, like, what have we not gone to yet, rhythmically, So I kind of like rack my brain, like if I'm going to write a Lettuce tune, it's got to have an original beat, an original feel, and a tempo we haven't touched yet, So that's where like, House of Let comes in. It's like, we don't really have like a good, solid, funky house tune, and like there's a way to do it that's still Lettuce, but incorporating this sort of like beat that, people love to dance to house music. That's like a huge thing. So why not incorporate that in some way without using drum machines or anything, and play it live and just kind of like, have that driving force going on. So that's kind of how I look at the creative process.
Man, that's just so dope to hear you break it down like that. And you're such a student of the rhythm, period, globally, and you do it in all these little, sublime ways and keep it lettuce. But, you got that Afro beat, you got that trap, dubstep, etc. I wanted to just ask a little bit, because everyone's home now, doing their thing on this quarantine. How did you guys put together the Funkin' from home? A lot of people have asked, it really was produced well together, totally lettuce. What was the process for Funkin' at home?
Well, I originally wanted to call it Wash Your Hands, because I feel like that was more of a appropriate title, because it starts with the clapping, the clapping of when after you wash your hands and you're wiping them, you start coming up with a clap rhythm. So I was searching through my computer, and I found these claps, I went clap, 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 and I was like, wow, this could be a lettuce tune starter, So I love having a unique percussion thing in there that kind of sets off the song. So, I decided to put a drum beat down in my house. I used 2 microphones, and I got it, I put it through a bunch of stuff to beef it up and make it dope, and as dope as I could in my house. Obviously we're not working with Russ, and there's no professional engineers anywhere near us, but, I sent the drums to Shmeens, and he immediately came up with this single note line that just had some Shmeens JB funk in there, and then it went to Jesus, and then it went to Nigel, and then the horns were instantly threw something on it, and everyone kept sending the stuff back to me, or back to Shmeens, and then Shmeens mixed it. And Shmeens is an amazing engineer. He went to Berkeley, he studied music production and engineering. So, he was, even though he was a killing guitar player, his engineering skills are phenomenal. So when you hear that, you're hearing Shmeens' coming out party as a mixer for lettuce, so now people, thank you for saying you dug the sound of it, because that was Shmeens' first time mixing a lettuce tune that goes out to the public,
Right on. Yeah. It sounded really authentic, and given the circumstances, I mean, you could have put it on the playlist with the rest of your catalog and it fit right in. But I think it was just a dose of positivity. Oh yeah, of course, man. Was it just the jolt that the fan base needed to see that, you guys were home and you were okay? I mean, we might all have known that one way or another, but, just to see it and to hear it and to say, guys, we're still here, and to transition a little bit, you did that personally on your own, page, part of the Sofa King Fest, where you, performed live streamed for an hour. And a lot of that was material many of us have never heard, but you took the opportunity to announce you have a forthcoming solo record, The Age of Imperfection. Yeah. Can we talk about that for a sec? You've been schooling me for a long time about production, just letting me know what time it is, who to listen to, or whatever. I'm curious, philosophically.
And you've been schooling me too, bro. It's a two-way street,
Yeah, right on, man. I appreciate you saying that too, man. But what was the approach for Age of Imperfection from a production standpoint, from a composition standpoint?
It's like what we were talking about before. I'm a big fan of producers like Jay Dilla and Pete Rock and DJ Premier. Those are my 3 guys. And especially Dilla and Premier, they have this chill. There's this whole thing now happening with lo-fi hip hop. It's a new. It's a sort of a new term for basically I call them the disciples of Dilla, which is, there's a bunch of them. There's people like the Counts, and there's people like Otis McDonald, and there's people like DJ Harrison, who are making this sort of lo-fi, funky, instrumental hip hop stuff with kind of chill overtones, and they're not sampling records. And I've been sampling records for years to get those sonics and to get those sounds, and it finally dawned on me to try to get that sound without sampling things, without sampling other people's records, and try to sample myself and try, force myself to play bass on something and you know, keep the keyboard track I played on the roads and just kind of like build from there, you know. Obviously I can't get the sound of a 60-piece orchestra in my house, you know, because I don't play violin, but there are things that, you know, there are limitations, but I try to work within those limitations to create something original and something that has that dirty kind of vinyl feel to it, you know, and also adding live drums to this stuff instead of adding like, you know, VST drums or you know, or even if I do use like a drum from a kick drum from, you know, a sample pack, you know, or something like that, I'll overdub my live drums over it so it has a combination of both. So that's really where I was going with this record.
Word. I mean, that is a really
sonically,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and there's always with just about anything that you do, BrkSci, Lettuce, and I've definitely noticed this with your solo productions. There's an emotional sort of quotient to the music. There are feels, as the kids say, but it's often, most often, instrumental music. How do you, if you can put it into words, like how do you go there? I noticed that on the listen I had to the new record and going back to, you know, Skies Alive and stuff. There's just such an emotional aesthetic feels without lyrics. Where do you go to create that? Or
well, I feel like, you know, music and the sound of notes, you know, the sound of instruments is universal. And that's why I call it space dust, because I heard someone say that, like, we're all made of cosmic dust. We're all made of, like, you know, the same thing stars are made of and suns and moons is in our bodies, you know. So there's nothing more universal than that. You know what I mean? Like, we are a piece of the cosmos. We are a piece of the universe, you know. So I kind of approach this record, you know, and like Lettuce and BrkSci, where, you know, vocals are minimal because language can be confusing sometimes. You know, we have fans in Tokyo, we have fans in Brazil and, you know, Mexico and Germany and like, you know, not everybody speaks English, but how do you relate to people without speaking their language? And it's notes, it's music, you know, it's like having them sing the horn line or sing the synth melody is deep because like that, you know, they don't have to worry about translating the words and they could feel the meaning. They could feel what it means and where we're going with it without having to spell it out with lyrics. So I'm really into that, and I'm into like expressing emotions through notes, you know, through sounds, as opposed to like spelling out a particular situation or, you know, involving like poetic stuff with lyrics. That's where I'm trying to go, you know, with this. And kind of both bands, you know, my music is in between Lettuce and BrkSci. It has a little bit of the funk of Lettuce. It has a little bit of the electronics of BrkSci. It's sort of like this in between place that I like to live in when I'm off tour.
Well stated. And you mentioned about the bridge with BrkSci and kind of being in between the two, and you even reverse engineered that recently. I do want to touch on one BrkSci thing while I have you. The acoustic versions of a few of your tracks that you posted just for them on a baby grand and a little synth, and you're on a small, you know, sort of minimalist drum kit. And you reworked probably my favorite song, Once in a While. And I talked about it on an earlier episode of the podcast. But, you know, that has a beautiful emotional lyric from Sonia Kitchell, but this is an instrumental version of that. Do you just maybe talk about how you arranged, or both of you arranged the like electronic music of BrkSci in the minimalist setting? And can we expect more of that? Because we sure love those couple of tracks.
Yeah, we definitely love doing that, and we kind of fought it at first because, you know, we come from the era of like, you know, big banging bass and you know, we were on festivals with Bass Nectar and Tipper and all these people, and people like to have their brains and hearts twisted out with electronic and bass. So we didn't understand how our crowd would respond to this, and we got to send a shout out to Phil, our manager, for pushing us to do it because the response was incredible. And you could definitely look forward to us doing that again. And we might do an entire set live stream like that because people are asking for it. They're hitting me up every day on Instagram going, do more of that, do more of that. Which means, it gives us a chance for people to see Borum play keyboards, which is an amazing piano player and synth player, live. He doesn't need to, sit there for hours and program it. He could just play it, And, my drum style, I could go between, a jazzier, funkier thing and playing like a machine. I've studied how to play like a machine, for years. So I like to, go between that. So we're definitely going to do more of that for sure.
Man, it was so beautiful. So thank you. As I mentioned on the Insta when you posted it, man, it really moved me at a time when I needed to hear something like that. So
thank you.
We look forward to it. I'm asking everyone that I'm interviewing one last question before we hop off, everyone during the pandemic, and that is music is what obviously brings us together, particularly you and I. And can you pick an artist or a show or a song maybe that's getting you through or that you want to suggest to your fans out there? Like, hey, check this out because, you'll feel real good after you hear it.
Ooh, I've been posting a lot of stuff on my Instagram. I'm first of all, I'm digging super hard for rare soul and funk. And I'm discovering new bands or old bands that I just never heard before. Like everyone should check out the Skull Snaps, like for old school stuff, for like, if you dig that old school soul funk, like the Skull Snaps they have this song called, I think it's New Day by the Skull Snaps. And when you hear that, you're hearing exactly where we want to go sonically with the music with Lettuce. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so well done, and it's so funky, and it's so incredible. And then, I'm listening to a lot of The Count, and he's a guy that's producing, like, making all his loops himself and doing everything himself. He's playing keyboards, he's playing percussion, he's playing drums. If you follow him on Twitter, you'll hear it. You could see he does these videos where he shows you the process of how he records his stuff, which is totally eye-opening for me, and how he does it. So, like, that's sort of like the new school stuff that's going on. And, of course, DJ Harrison, what he's doing is incredible on his own, and the work he's doing with Butcher Brown is getting heavier and heavier. And he's someone to watch. He's like a future sort of Quincy Jones producer kind of guy, And he just produced Nigel's new record, which is going to come out hopefully on Lettuce Records soon. I don't know if we should announce that yet, but we're going to try to put it on Lettuce Records, and it's incredible. Like, Nigel's new record is phenomenal as well. So between all that, I'm loving all that, and I'm listening to everything, man. I'm checking out all the eras, and I found this band called Sun Bear, which is like an Earth, Wind, and Fire type band from the 70s that was run by Greg Philliganes, who's a famous keyboard player and arranger, worked with Michael Jackson and everybody. And that's some incredible, like, rare funk that I've never heard, And so, it just continues. The music is infinite. And when you feel like you've experienced enough, from inside the country, you go outside the country, you check out some Ethiopian funk from 1968 or some Egyptian stuff or some Brazilian funk from, 73, so it's just like a never-ending journey, and it's keeping me going throughout all of this.
Hell yeah, man. That's a lot to chew on, and super appreciative that you gave us such a thoughtful reply. Man, I gotta say, your music fills us up and some kind of way, and a lot of my favorite people and best friends on this rock, I know because your band brought us together. So on behalf of all the fans, not just Lettuce, but music fans everywhere, thank you.
That means a lot, man. You've been a huge supporter over the years, and I love that we get to work together in this manner. And like doing that song with Emilio today, and talking to Emilio from Tower of Power, the guy that started Tower of Power. It was such an honor. It's as if, like, who's the writer in your life that you were like, I want to write. Who inspired you to write?
This guy from Rolling Stone, David Fricke, still doing it, but he's a legend.
I know that name. So it's kind of like if you and David Fricke were writing a piece together on something,
Right.
It's like a full circle kind of feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can only imagine, man. I mean, I know how your whole family feels about Tower of Power. So, I mean, that's just a life goal right there.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So everything's looking on the up and up, and I'm more inspired than ever to continue to keep writing. And, I just realized my computer is now full, and it's only full of music. I have no movies in my computer. I have nothing in it except music. 2,000 tracks on my Pro Tools and 5,000 tracks on my iTunes. So much music. So my computer's now full. I have to switch computers now. So it's crazy. It let me know that I've been keeping it going, and now I'm about to fill up this new computer with a bunch of new shit, and it makes me feel good knowing people want to hear it, and that we have the team to get the music out to the people, and we're just really looking forward to, I'm really looking forward to putting more music out and keeping everybody going throughout all this craziness.
Right on, man. That is just a hell of a jolt of positivity for us to finish with, man. So again, big thanks. We'll be checking in with you one day when we can sit across from each other again. We'll sit down for the podcast and we'll talk about your whole career and all your inspirations. But for now, man, this was 30 minutes of just incredible conversation. So thank you.
If you want to do a Zoom podcast and FaceTime podcast with people, I'll help set any of that up, man. I think you're extremely knowledgeable and you know what to ask. And we could do people, we could do a podcast based on anything, based on hip hop and funk and the combination, or, I'll help you get, Glasper and whoever,
That would be incredible, man.
Yeah,
wow.
Think about that.
Thank
I think
you.
that would be really useful. We'll have Live for Live Music produce it, and I'd love to be a guest on there and get you some more guests.
From your lips to jaw ears, man, I'm on it. I'm going to start dreaming it up.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen, man. Thank you for doing this, man. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks for the time and for the music, man. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate that, man. Stay up, homie. Say to your wife.
Will do. Stay healthy, brother.
All right.
Peace.
You too, man. Peace.
Want to say thank you and a deep bow of gratitude to Adam Deitch for that absolutely thrilling conversation. I gotta say, I've known Adam a long time. We've had many conversations, but that one was truly special. So much so that I had to cut in like this after the interview to just say, holy shit. Y'all heard that about a podcast breaking down 90s hip-hop with Deitch and others of his selection. So y'all need to hold us to that, and I will make sure we bring it to fruition, because that is one of the more incredible ideas that's come across my desk probably ever. So shouts to Deitch for breaking down all that good shit. The production process, the writing and recording of Lettuce, Tower, Power Connect, Bootsy, so much there. And you'll hear more about that with RYAN ZOIDIS in a little bit. I also needed an excuse to just play this blazing Deitch beat that I just came through with on this bumper music. It was from his live stream from the Sofa King Fest, and I went through pretty much every piece of recorded music that Adam's put out trying to identify it, and I could not. So I'm going to give you a little more and then introduce his parents. How great is that? That's the new Deitch Band single, Live Together, from their forthcoming LP, Work With What You Got. And man, what an honor and privilege it is to speak with Adam's parents, Bobby and DENISE Deitch, on the Upful Life Podcast. Now, you know, Bobby's got this new album coming out May 15th. I understand you can pre-order it May 1. So I was already doing some media about Bobby and his record, like I did for his 2017 release, Grateful. And then the stars just sort of aligned. One of those silver linings with the whole virus slowdown of everything was the album lined up in succession with Let Us Resonate and Adam's birthday and the podcast, and here we are. So on a glorious afternoon, I set out on the ranch on a nature walk and had just a heart-filling, rewarding, enlightening chat with both of Adam's parents. The primary focus of the conversation is more or less Bobby's album, his band, the music that he makes, and Denise's role in helping him create. And she's, of course, a member of the Deitch Band. So I really wanted to get a lot about that because Bobby spent the better part of 2 years putting this project together. And I want to do my part, not just to cover it, but to share with my network, my people, and the listeners to this show, the readers of Live for Live Music, etc. So, we chop it up a whole bunch. A little bit about what they're doing with their time, a lot about Work With What You Got, especially the Choice collab with George Porter called Constant Complainer. And then, of course, we talk a bit about Adam, Lettuce, the band, the brotherhood, the phenomenon, and more. You know, so with that, we'll give you a little bit more of Live Together from the Deitch Band, and then Bobby and DENISE Deitch on the Upful Life Podcast, episode 32, Isolation Station, volume 4. I'm your host, B. Getz.
Can we listen to each other? We've got to try to find some common ground before long. Why can't we live together?
Hello there, Mr. B. Getz.
How you doing, my friend Bobby? How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
We're we're holding up okay.
Yep. How you doing, B?
I'm good. I guess I was going to do a dry run, but you both sound pretty good, so we could just probably right to it. How are you,
Okay.
Mrs. Deitch?
I'm not bad, not bad.
I-
Just hanging in there like everybody else.
Yeah, that's all we can do. I have to ask, how are spending the time, the shelter in place time? How are you filling your days?
And you can go first.
Am I go first? Well, I'm watching a lot of television. Going for walks, doing some music, and cooking, and, talking to friends on the phone. Basically, the menza.
Sure.
Okay. What about you, Bob?
I've been spending time, helping to promote the album, and putting out 3 singles. So I also creating videos to go with each single. So
He's been putting in like 15 hours a day doing this,
Impressive.
Yeah, we see each other for meals, and that's about it.
Not
Can't get into the studio to play the drums or anything because he's working. He's working.
right. Well, it's great to be able to talk to you both for the podcast and for some of the media that I'll be doing for the album. But I always like to start the interviews with just a little personal stuff. So I wanted to ask how you both were doing. Bobby, you're still teaching in some capacity, right?
Oh, I'm completely teaching, online, and I actually teach in 2 colleges. So, I have the jazz band at Ramapo College of New Jersey, and I'm teaching 3 different courses at SUNY State University of New York at Rockland Community College. So they're keeping me busy, So
it's challenging.
it's challenging because you have, when you're lecturing, it's a whole nother situation than when you're doing this and trying to organize your thoughts online. So it's a challenge, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and that applies, I'm sure, to the music stuff too. When you're not in the same room as people and you're making music, it's a little different than and that's just our new reality now. This quarantine situation has everybody, apart from one another, and that's really what the podcast I've been doing lately is all about, is just checking in with people in the music culture to see how they're getting by, what are they doing, how are they creating, how are they adapting. And it's really just fortuitous that you had this album in the pipeline, Bobby. It's an honor to talk to both of you about it. Obviously been a big fan of all things Deitch for many years. And I was telling my fiance last night when I was preparing for the interview I remember the first time we met, like we really met, which was on Jam Cruise. And it's just been a real blessing to be along for the ride and seeing all the creativity that comes out of your family. So with this new album, I mean, I really want to get into what because I was able to do an article on Grateful, and we love that album. My mom loves that album. My fiance loves that album. But this album, I gotta say, like the 3 singles are any indication, it's better. It's better sounding. It's more developed. So what was your intention here when you set about to make this record? Did you want to change anything, evolve, go in a certain direction lyrically? What was the intention or the concept when you're like, I'm going to work with what you got?
Oh, that's a great question. And I mean, there are several answers to that question. One is, just like the first album, Denise has been such an influence on all of the songs, on most of them anyway. And I can remember, and I actually have somewhere an audio clip of the 2 of us kind of talking about how people need to, concentrate on their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. And we came up with the idea, Denise actually came up with the idea of the phrase, work with what you got. Yeah. And we were milling around with it for a while. And, I said, I got to write a song with that. And we started coming up with some funky grooves, just kind of like tapping on the kitchen table and that kind of thing. And then we got Adam involved, and then he wanted to take the same title and write a lettuce song based on the same title.
And we said no.
We said we got it first. And I went down into my studio, and I came up with this other phrase that kind of went right along with the title, which was, it's not about what you're not, just work with what you got. So,
And that
you know,
catapulted the
and
whole
that
song.
catapulted the entire song. So I came up with that little guitar lick that you hear at the very beginning. That's me on guitar. And, you know, we just, from there, I said, you know, we should just try to reach people and just spread love, spread compassion, try to get people to be more compassionate, to share their feelings with each other, point out some of the not so great things that are going on in the world, but also try to understand that we need to really heal the nation in a lot of ways and heal the world too. You know, partially with drumming, partially with lyrics, with grooves, with music. And then what happened was, you know, we were very fortunate to be hooked up with our BDB saxophonist, Matt Wayne, and he, you know, he is just a brilliant musician and has fantastic ears, and his ability to mix and engineer and arrange some of the songs on there, I think that was really the big difference from the first album to the second album. I think he made the
next
biggest
level.
difference.
He brought
He
us
really
to the
took
next
it up
level.
a huge notch.
Yeah.
Very talented guy.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear that from the first three singles, and the arrangements are fantastic, and there's just a lot going on, and you can hear it all. I put it on in headphones because I really wanted to, you know, dig in. And there's just a lot of great nuance, and there's a lot of space, and the songs really breathe.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you do you know, I was maybe less aware of how much of a multi-instrumentalist you are until I got a look at the credits. I mean, I guess I remember from the last record you did a lot, but where do you write? Where do you sit down to write the songs? Is it on the piano or on the guitar or even on the drums?
That's a great question. A lot of times the concept, whether it's a groove or whether it's a melody or a lyrical idea, you know, sometimes I get that from Denise, but a lot of times I'm out walking the dog, you know, we're walking outside. Sometimes it's 11, 12 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden an idea comes to me, you know, and I get back to the house and I hum it into my voice memos on my phone. And so I don't forget it, because a lot of times any songwriter who's out there knows that if you think you're going to remember something hours later without recording it or writing it down, it's going to be gone.
Especially at our age.
At any age, really. So, you know, in the morning, you know, if you think you're going to remember something in the morning, forget about it. You're never going to remember. But, yeah, a lot of times, you know, some of the songs are you know, I feel like they're keyboard kind of songs. So I tend to, you know, gravitate towards the keyboard if I think it's a keyboard style kind of song, maybe Rhodes vibe or acoustic piano vibe. Other songs I think, you know, kind of lend themselves more to the guitar. You know, once I do that, you know, yeah, and sometimes they're just based off of grooves. You know, I just come up with like I thought on Work With What You Got, I wanted it to kind of be like almost up-tempo Prince style funk, you know, just kind of a four on the floor, boom, bat, boom, bat, boom, bat, you know, kind of thing. And then on the pre-chorus, we go into kind of a James Brown kind of Cold Sweat kind of groove. And I was trying to think who might be a good drummer for something like that. And I was thinking, you know, I'm a fan of the band Turquoise, and I asked Mikey Karuba if he might be interested in playing drums on that. I thought the song Work With What You Got would be a good Turquoise style song. So we had Mikey play drums on that. He was more than happy to help us out with that one, and I'm very honored to have him on there. Also, we got Shira Elias to sing some backups on that particular song. We actually featured her on another song that our vocalist Natasha DeMarco is singing lead on. That's the one song that I'm not singing lead on. It's called He Loves Me. And it's all about trying to get your lover or your partner to take more of an interest in you. And
Commit.
Yeah, to commit to you, right.
Yeah.
And so there's one part where the subject's, the girl's friend says to her, hey, wait a minute, you know, let him come to you, you know, give it time, give it space. And we gave that section to Shira to sing to Natasha. So I was very excited about that. And she did a wonderful job.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing all the different guests that you assembled for the album. And I know you did that in the past.
Yeah.
What is the process? Because that's really a great marriage when you think about Mikey Karuba is such a high octane drummer, and,
Oh, yeah.
and Work With What You Got is sort of, obviously it's the title track, and it's a high octane song. Like, devise those type of plans, who plays on what when you're creating it, or did you have the songs and then say, all right, who can we get?
Yeah, well, that's a great question also. What I do when I write a song, once it's completed, when the composition of the song itself, and I know where I'm going with it, because I can play bass guitar, I can play regular electric guitar, keys, and drums, I'm able to sit down with my laptop and Logic, go out and just track it all by myself and demo the entire song out. Once I hear it the way I kind of would like it to be, then I say, well, that would be great. I think that this person would do this really well, or that person would do this really well. So that's when I start to think what style, because, my influences are so diverse also, that, I'm influenced by Stevie Wonder and Billy Joel and Earth, Wind and Fire, Al Green, on and on and on. And so when I write, sometimes I have a certain artist in mind. I might take a little taste of what somebody else maybe is, what I think their style, the essence of their style of a specific song, without stealing it or just giving the vibe of it. And I say to myself, okay, who would best project that style? Obviously I have incredible musicians in my own band that have, that probably a bunch of the best musicians in the New York metropolitan area that I can think of, with Dave Reese, who's our music director, Joe Mama Carpentieri, who was actually a former student of Adam's, and Adam recommended Joe to play drums on the record.
Who kills it live.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. He plays all of those tracks when we do it live.
We like to promote young people too, because they need that audience. We're getting on in age, and it's nice to help promote young people with their musical careers.
Yeah, that's for sure. And, so that's what I did. With Constant Complainer, which is my duet with George Porter, he actually played bass on my last album on Start Living Your Life.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we were out in Colorado, I think I discussed this with you already, and he came up to me and said, hey, when are you going to do another album, and can I be on it? And I was like, absolutely.
Are you kidding?
And then when I came up with the idea for Constant Complainer, which is kind of a funny song, but I think everybody knows
Negative people.
Yeah, these negative people that always want to see the cup half empty rather than half full. So I think, I said, well, George should help me out with this. And when I asked him if he would do it, he was more than happy to help me out. And he went over to Nigel's and recorded the bass track, and not Nigel Hall, by the way. And he, I said, would you be interested in singing some parts on it? And he was like, sure. Tell me what you want me to sing, and I'll sing it. So we did. We pieced it. And he did his tracks from New Orleans, and I did my tracks right here in New York. And I'm very pleased with it. I think it came out really well. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and that's great backstory there for the folks, because a lot of the listeners to the podcast, and certainly on people who read Live for Live Music, are big fans of George Porter. And I was there that day in Colorado. It was the day after Red Rocks that Lettuce had played, and there was a smaller event way up high. I actually struggled with the elevation that day. That's how I remember. It was in Commerce, Colorado. And as I told you, I have a photograph somewhere of the three of you, George, and Denise, from that afternoon. And it's funny to think that this song was, in essence, that was like it was born in a conversation on that day. And I want to say thank you for giving George the opportunity to sing. Obviously, we've heard him sing for years, and he sings live all the time. But to hear him in the studio, with all the extra bells and whistles that you get, just his age and his sort of just the weathered nature of everything that makes every utterance that comes out of George so full of story and life and perspective that you can just hear in the fabric of his vocal. But to have that crisp in the studio, and just to hear like current era George vocally.
Right.
It's so amazing. So thank you for just giving him the opportunity. And you guys, it's a great duet. I really dig the song. And it's also a breath of fresh air because you do tackle a lot of heavier topics, social commentary. I really love Live Together. I want to get to that next. Constant Complainer is kind of like something lighthearted. And I think that that's necessary, especially in light of the current situation. We need to be able to chuckle. And we get George on vocals. And it's a great tune. And it's funky.
Thank you. Thank you very much. George he just exudes love.
Yep.
And I think it comes over in the song.
Definitely.
But it definitely comes over in his personality. And, everything he does is about love. And he's just a super wonderful guy. He's a legend. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just so proud to call him a friend. He's just an amazing person. He actually did renew Denise's and mine. He renewed our wedding vows on one of the jam cruises years ago, and that was a very special day for us. Very special moment.
Yes, indeed. That's beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And, just to be able to make music with someone, have that kind of relationship with someone, legend or not, just George, like you said, exudes love. He married another friends of ours at Brooklyn Bowl, too. He's just that kind of guy.
Yep.
And, of course, his whole vibe and message, could be present on Live Together. Live Together, the most recent song you put out. First things first, the first note you hit vocally on Live Together is so amazing, Bobby. Just like your opening note sets the tone. It's great. I just, it reminded me that you could really sing, really sing.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And
when I sat down at the piano, what happened was I came up with this 5-note little riff, like ba da 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 da, and I said, I played a chord on it on top of that, and when I played those 5 notes, I said, well, I based the entire song off these 5 notes. Can't we live together? That just spawned the entire song. When I first wrote it, I wrote it. First, I was going to make it a relationship song, and like a guy telling a girl, why, we need to move. We love each other. We should move in together. And Denise said, what? There's so many songs with this topic. Why don't you change it? Make it, more of a political kind of social commentary
With what's going on in the world.
what's going on in the world. I said, what? That's a fantastic idea. So, my partner in life here is my partner in songwriting also. So she's amazing. She gives me great concepts and great titles.
Let's talk about that for a second, Denise, if you wouldn't mind. So Bobby, bats stuff off, spitballs. Hey, I got this tune. I got this riff. And then what is your contribution when, do you sit down at the drums and play along? Will you work out vocal harmonies at the kitchen table? Just take us there.
Yeah, all the above, all the above, all the above. We have a lot of conversations about the concept of songs and work it through and change it and work it through and change it again and add this to it. And definitely we always work out harmony parts. And they're always hard in his songs. He doesn't write simple songs, so we always have to work at it.
Yeah,
I know I do.
A lot of my songs come from the Stevie Wonder, Billy Joel school, and they're well known for their, lots of chord changes.
Yeah.
It's funny. We did a gig last August in Denver at Cervantes, and we used Adam and Adam on drums, Schmeens and Deitch. We used those two guys in the band, and they flew out, Matt, Natasha, and Dave, Scott Morrill, who's an amazing guy, went ahead and flew these guys out, and they booked us in the club, and we did the show, and so I had to give these songs, 11 or 12 or 13 songs to Schmeens to play, and Lettuce is complicated and is great, and it's mostly their grooves and all of the things that they do. They're an amazing band, and we love them, and I know them all since they were kids. But when Schmeens, started to learn my songs, he was his comment was, There's billions and billions of chords. I thought I was going to laugh so hard.
Right.
I
Yeah.
just
It was
billions
challenging.
and billions.
It was challenging for him. It's hard stuff.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
It sounds simple, but it's difficult. It's like they said, Stevie Wonder songs. If you analyze them, or even Beatles songs sound so simple, but they're not. you know.
Right. There's key
Chord
changes
blocks.
all over the place.
Yeah.
And all kinds of rhythmical things. And
But that's what that's how he writes.
But that's what makes it special, and I think that, like, your music, like your parents to most of the people my generation, and yet you're making music that's accessible for your peers and
Right.
and people my age, and then the next generation. And
yeah, that's for sure. I mean, we're, musically speaking, I'm a product really of the mid '70s, and I think a lot of people, especially musicians, will agree with me that a lot of the great music was coming out during that time. So it's a big influence on me, and you can hear it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you listen to the duet that Denise and I sang, called "You're All That Matters to Me," and you'll hear you will definitely hear Maurice White's influence on that song. The Earth, Wind and Fire influence with Matt Wayne's horn arrangements are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a huge Earth, Wind and Fire. I took Adam to see Earth, Wind and Fire when he was a kid. We went to Radio City in Manhattan, and I think that kind of was a pivotal change in his life too.
Right.
oh, certainly he's referenced that a number of times, and ironically, your album comes out on May 15th. So before we transition to maybe a little Adam talk, I just want to let folks know that are listening. Bobby Deitch Band, Work With What You Got, May 15th. Am I right?
That's correct. I think pre-sale begins May 1st. So you can either go up on CD Baby, you can go on BobbyDeitchBand.com, and at that point, after May 1st, and you should be able to, put in some kind of pre-sale on there. So we'll keep you posted on that.
I'll make sure to put that link in the show notes for the podcast, and of course, the article will have any and all applicable links. And
Thank you.
I was just talking with RYAN ZOIDIS on the phone a couple days ago, just casual conversation, and he was riffing on just because we were talking about Lettuce having Remember the Children, the Earth, Wind and Fire songs on their new record, which comes out a week before yours. And as we acknowledge, it's Adam's birthday, and part of this podcast is in essence a gift to him. I like to give Adam a gift every year in one capacity or another. And I thought doing a podcast with him and his parents is as good as I'm going to get on quarantine. So it would be really amazing if we could just talk a little bit about, because you guys have both of you have such a role in Lettuce. And I was just thinking about all the times you've shared the stage with them, and now they're about to announce their new album. They were nominated for a Grammy.
Resonate!
It's just an amazing time to be a Lettuce fan, and I can imagine it's an even more amazing time to be Lettuce fam. So we can reflect a little bit on their journey from then to now, if you wouldn't mind, just anything that sticks out.
I love them. I feel like I have 6 sons, not just one.
Yeah.
And I love all of them. The 5 other guys that they're like flesh and blood at this point. I love them all dearly. I know Shmeen since he was 16, and Ryan, Kraz when he was with the band, same thing. ED, Jesus, I love him. He's just a special guy, and I know all of their parents, and their parents are really wonderful. So, and we love
Nigel Hall.
Yeah, and we love Nigel. Nigel is, he's just the greatest. I just love him to death.
We've just seen them grow musically and also friendship-wise. They've grown tremendously in how they develop their music. Like, say, for instance, if Adam comes up with a groove or an idea, and then Benny comes up with a great trumpet part. He's so talented as well, Benny Bloom. He's amazing. We just love to see the development of what they have. Adam likes to give us the rough, so we hear things before they're developed, and we hear the raw piece, you know, and then we hear the final piece, and it's always 10 levels better than what we heard. You know, it's amazing how they can do that. You know, they're such creative people together and bring it out in each other and encourage each other. And, you know, I know they fight too, but
I mean, that's a fact of life.
You know, that's what siblings do, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just, you know, music is like yourselves, it's my life. It really is what makes me tick. And I can say unequivocally that Lettuce is my favorite music, my favorite band. To be like friendly with them and close to them on some level is a thrill. But first and foremost, it's about the art and the music. I've really never felt so, you know, connected to art like I do there. Lettuce, it's a religion. It's such an honor to be able to just talk with both of you, because obviously Adam is the engine behind Lettuce, literally and figuratively, and you gave him life and you reared him in a way that has given him the freedom and ability to create, not just with Lettuce. I mean, we're talking about Lettuce now, but he's got, you know, a number of other incredible projects and relationships out there.
The forum, you know, and
Break Science is
yeah.
Adam Quartet.
Yeah, and the quartet and all that.
Schofield. I mean, the list goes on. And he posts a video on Instagram or whatever, and it's like a who's who of drumming of 3 generations commenting on Adam's video. And that just blows my mind. It happened the other day. I was watching one when he did the House of Let breakdown, and just all the drummers just, you know, showing love to him. So I just wanted to celebrate, I had you on really to talk about the Bobby Deitch Band album, but also to just sort of raise a toast to your son, who's literally my favorite artist in music, and I'm proud to call him a friend, and I'm proud to call both of you friends, and
Absolutely.
I'm also a huge fan of all that you do and create.
I can't wait for everybody to hear the new BDB album, but also the new Lettuce album. You know, I've been listening to it for months now, and
It's unbelievable.
I think they're constantly kicking it up a notch.
Yep.
You know, they're always doing something that just blows me away.
No one's going to sit still when they hear this one.
Yeah, this album
Agreed.
is very special.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we look forward to the back-to-back weeks, resonate with Lettuce on the 8th, and then Bobby Deitch Band, work with What You Got on the 15th. And sooner or later, both bands will be back on the respective stages, and we can't wait for that either.
God willing. God willing.
Well, we're all willing to wait till it's right and safe. In the meantime, we'll just keep loving each other. We'll check in with each other. You can count on me to spread the both albums, to anyone who will have a listen.
Yeah.
I mean, both Adam and Bobby, I know, are just in such a creative head now, being home and being in their studio. You can't tear them away from it. Because I miss Adam and I love him and I wish he was here, but I said you would be fighting over the studio with your father if you were here.
Right.
There's no way that's going to work, But he's happy to be home, and, he said he's been on the road for 22 years, living in hotels, living on buses and what have you. And he looks forward to having this time to write and create and record and practice and teach, and he's doing it all right now.
He really is. And thank you for saying that. It's such an amazing, juxtaposition, because the negatives go without saying with the music industry and the fallout from the virus, and of course people's illnesses and dying. But there is a silver lining there for so many folks who are on the rat race, but particularly a guy in a band or 5 like Adam. The opportunity for him to slow down and sink into himself, create, rest,
Yes. Yeah.
You can't put a price on that, and I don't begrudge anyone who says that this is good for them.
Right.
He's
cooking too, which is amazing.
Cooking, that's all. Yeah.
And
this
healthy.
is a big influence on his cooking.
Yeah, he's cooking.
Yeah.
Trying to eat as healthy as possible, and
keep your immune system up. I'm hoping for that for everybody. Anybody listening to this podcast,
keep that immune system up. That's the main thing.
Yep.
That's right.
Well said, and that's what we're focused on here. And both of you, please stay safe, stay healthy. And,
you too.
And back at you and your girlfriend, your mom. I know your
fiance.
mom real well.
It's
Your
fiance.
fiance.
Mm-hmm.
And also everybody listening to this, take good care of yourselves. be safe, do the right thing.
Stay home if you can.
Yeah, do what you
Yeah.
need to do to let this thing go be on its way, so it doesn't come back and get us again. So
Yeah.
stay safe and be well, everybody.
Right on. Well, thank you for your time and the energy and the stories and, of course, the music. We'll talk soon.
Well, you're welcome,
Okay,
B.
thank
Thank
you,
you so
B.
much for having us. We appreciate you.
Yep.
Yes, indeedy. Another deep bow of gratitude for Bobby and Denise Deitch. Wow, what a conversation. Just sometimes got to pinch myself that not only do I get to talk to my favorite artist in music on the eve of releasing 2 new albums from his band and solo project, but I get to talk to his parents about their new album and about their son and his bands. And, you know, I don't take anything for granted in this life, and certainly not during this time. So let it be known that I am just so grateful that I have the privilege to have these conversations and then transmit them to music fans around the world or whoever finds their way to this show. And any and every guest that makes time for this, you know, I am in such deep appreciation for your time and your energy and your thoughtful contributions. And this episode is such a profound example of just that. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Adam. And now we get to go to my man, RYAN ZOIDIS. Wow, I'm recording in my car, which is what I do out here on the ranch for good sound, and a bee just made its way into my vehicle. I was tempted to stop recording and bug out. He's mighty close, but I think I'm going to roll with it. So, my man, I hope you stay put or just kind of mosey around over there, but I'm going to keep recording because I got my man RYAN ZOIDIS coming up. RYAN is one of my dearest friends. And not just saying that. He's been a just real solid cat in my life for a damn long time. And I love all the guys in Lettuce. Just RYAN and I communicate often, and he's invited me to be just a friend to him and in his life in a major way. And that speaks volumes to me. Never more so than when I was locked up. And D'Angelo released his first album in 14 years, and RYAN played a couple of cuts from Black Messiah through the phone, into the payphone to me in jail. And while I couldn't hear them that well, I got the gist, and more than anything, I got the love from RYAN, and that's something that I hold on to for the rest of my life. And ironically enough, that radio station that I listen to in jails that I've talked about so often on this show, KVMR, like 2 nights later on their independent underground hip-hop show every other Thursday night, that gal, she played 2 tracks from Black Messiah, and I only recognized the first one so soon because of the snippets I got from Zoid. And really, D'Angelo and Voodoo and the producer, engineer Russell Elevado is just like this vortex of how RYAN and I became friends. That's what we talked about so much early in our friendship. And hence why I'm so flabbergasted and blown away that Russ has been at the helm and on the boards for the last 2 Lettuce records, Elevate and now the forthcoming Resonate. So normally, naturally, I'd like to give RYAN his own episode, deep dive on his phenomenal career, Rustic Overtones, Soul Live, Shady Horns, the Royal Hammer reggae band from Portland, Maine, and of course his OG status with Let. But he was down to be a part of the Deitch birthday extravaganza. So he touches on Adam and his relationship to Adam and Bobby and Denise towards the end of the episode. Of course, we got to get into Russ Elevado, Voodoo, D'Angelo, and the Resonate sessions. I hit him on a couple of my favorite tracks. We get some backstory there. And maybe the most beautiful and pertinent part of our conversation is in the beginning, where Ryan talks about what he's doing with all this time off the road, specifically with his daughter, and how that's transformed the experience of fatherhood for him and the father-daughter relationship with he and she, and how she's making her way through his record collection, and how inspiring her on the piano. So much in there from my pal, my brother, Ryan Zoidis. You're hearing Larimar, which is actually on Lettuce's last record, Elevate. I've already played Ndugu last week. I've got House of Let coming in a little while. And we opened with Checker Wrecker. And I really wanted to stick with the new shit and the studio shit, because that's what this episode is about, and that's where the band is putting so much of their energy right now. So I played Trapezoid Dub last week, which is my favorite jam off of Elevate, and therefore you're hearing Larimar, which is my next favorite jam off Elevate, and then we'll get one more new Lettuce song for the Vibe Junkie Jam of the Week. But hold off on that. First, let's hear Zoid get a little bit busy on the end of Larimar. This is the Upful Life Podcast. I'm your host, B. Getz, Isolation Station Volume 4. Yes, indeedy. Zoid, what up? It's B. Getz. How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm also good, man. I'm lucky and blessed to be talking to you from a really beautiful place in the middle of nowhere in NorCal. You in Portland?
Yeah, I'm up in beautiful Portland, Maine.
I know that's your hometown and where you're from and raising your daughter. So you haven't been home like this in a while, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day, and I was trying to remember the last time I was home for this long, and I want to say it was like at least 10 years. I mean, touring's always been a big part of my life, and I'm used to just the in and out here for blips, and there's always something on the horizon, and I think maybe I've been home for this long, but I've never been home with the feeling that I don't have something booked, like I don't have to go to the airport a certain day, or it's such a different feeling and different headspace to be home, that way, so yeah, I've been really digging into that, and it's I feel like it's changed my whole approach to my daily life, my daily routine.
Yeah, I can imagine, man, and that's got to be the case for musicians across the country and really around the world. And speaking of around the world, and I got to say before we start, man, that this is going to be an abbreviated interview and conversation. I mean, we're good friends and we talk all the time, and I always envisioned that we'd be sitting across from each other and we could talk about your whole career and how you got there. And I look forward to being able to do that down the road. But right now, we're just checking in with folks, kind of getting the 411 on their current reality in light of the COVID-19 and the fallout and the slowdown, but also just kind of want to hear what creative people are doing with the time or what they have in the pipeline. And you've got a lot of both. So before we get into the new Lettuce album and a lot of your other endeavors, unfortunately, Lettuce's tour was cut just short in Europe in February into March. You were there for roughly a month. What was some of the, instead of asking about the cancellation, let's focus on the positive. I know it was a vibrant, really just transformative experience for the band. Any reflections you care to share or about the experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different. We were able to showcase a whole different side of Lettuce that has existed the whole time, but we just haven't been able to express it on that stage. You know, those small, intimate stages are like what we are, how we kind of honed our craft and found our sound. You know, and to have people write up on us that were so excited to see us and were listening to every note and vibing so hard to a new level. And it just reminded us where we come from, and we're just like, you know, hopefully we get a chance to bring that to a big stage and see if we can pull it off, you know. It was really a humbling experience for us because these people, a lot of the fans that had come to see us had been waiting for 10 years, and so they just kind of made us play our hearts out, no matter how tired we were or disoriented we were, or, you know, like we just every night had so much energy in the room that like it was undeniable. So yeah, the Europe tour was an eye-opening experience, and the band grew a lot and developed a lot improvisationally, and just we added a lot to our show. It was a really inspiring experience for all of us.
Yeah, and it was really incredible to get those little short films from Human Being, and having Jay, who obviously made the documentary about the band a few years back, which is amazing, let us play. But these little vignettes, these little glimpses of y'all in cafes and ganja shops and the horn, trumpet, and saxophone stores.
Yeah.
What was behind that? Was that a conceptual thing that Jay brought to the band? Did you conceive it together? Was it a fly on the seat of your pants thing? That was awesome.
No, I mean, basically it was just like, who's gonna do the funnest shit today? Like, who's gonna find the fun hang, you know? Like, and he would either be awake and ready for it, or he'd be editing. Like the way that he like took that whole trip and was just unbelievable for one guy to do. It seemed like there was like a camera crew with us when you watch those videos, but he was just with us the whole time. And he just managed to like one of us would get in his ear and be like, yo, tomorrow I'm doing this. Like my was broken, so I had to go to this random horn store in Vienna to drop it off and get it fixed or pick it up. And I was picking it up, and they happened to have this enormous saxophone there that no one has ever played in the world. And like, I just got to play a few notes on it, and he happened to be there. And then, you know, Jesus was there. We busked in the street in Vienna. Like, he would just kind of be in the right place at the right time, and he knows us so well that he would just know where to go, you know. So
yeah, he's incredible. And I just was so thrilled that we got to live that vicariously in those little shorts. And of course, a number of videos that have been posted of snippets of performances. So hopefully, you know, we get to see more and hear more, because, you know, as hardcore Lettuce fans, we always want to consume the newest. But especially with regard to how you speak of the experience, I can only imagine how that came out in the music, with everyone the stage plots so close together and the audiences on top of you, waiting a decade plus to see you. I mean, that's like what dreams are made of. So I am so thrilled that you got as many shows in as you did before it did come to an end. And since it came to an end, I understand you had to quarantine for a period of time, and you've been immersing yourself. I've seen the videos you posted, some solo sax with synth. And what are you doing creatively in the run-up to the release of the album, you know, by yourself out there?
I've had like this, you know, kind of renaissance of just pure musicianship and practicing my instrument again, and really focusing on my craft a lot more, you know, acutely than I would if I was just going about my normal schedule, which is looking ahead to the next dates, trying to maximize my time at home as a father, and just keeping all those logistics together. And I would generally be distracted by that stuff when I'm home, but this current this vibe right now, I'm like, my house is like feels so much more settled, and I've really worked on kind of like getting the flow right. So because I've been playing my saxophone a lot more than I ever had before at home, really, to be honest. I have my studio set up so I can make a record in my studio finally, which was the vision for it from the start, but I really hadn't had time to do that. So I've been able to kind of dial all these things in, and then like work on my synth and plug all my synths in and see how they work, and just stuff that I see myself doing, but I really do most of it on the road when we're traveling and in sound checks and stuff. I have these like little windows of time where I can practice or work on a new sound on my synth, or just try a new piece of gear or something like that. But like when I'm home and I'm alone, focused on it, it's a different story, and I'm really appreciating that, because that's what got us here in the first place. You know what I mean? It's really we're able to like rediscover the fundamentals that got us here, and the real foundation of music that made us good instrumentalists. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing that, you're given this gift of an opportunity to sink into your home, like you said, settled, being a father without it being like on the clock or a race against time. And naturally, as a fan, to see just the glimpses of the videos, or like that sketch you made of how you were dreaming up your synth sax setup, and just knowing that about you, and like that you're given the time to spend with your daughter, or really, really investing yourself in like your instrument. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah, I mean, I also didn't really even touch on how incredibly special a gift I've been given, and my daughter has been given, to have this time with each other that's so focused, and so there's nothing intruding on our time. Like, there's no schedule. Our time is so much more open than it ever has been, and we've never experienced this feeling, So this is like, her piano playing has taken off. Like she's really focused on learning this new piece that she's working on, and she has we have a drum kit in the living room, piano's there, studio's right around the corner, all the horns are out. It's just music all the time. She sees me practicing, it inspires her to practice, click the metronome on, and like by the end of the day she'll be playing something, twice as fast as she started it. Like she's really like seeing how to make progress in it, and she sees that it makes you feel good when you do that, So that's been a real gift too. And we've just been like hanging a lot too, which is also really special.
And I saw that you had all the records spread out for her, and she was making her way through your vinyl collection.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, what were some of her favorite pulls out of that pile?
She fell in love with Bootsy that day, actually. She pulled 2 Bootsy records out, and she was just like, I gave her like 2 hours with the Bootsy records, because she was like, is this guy, she was confused. She was like, is this guy still alive? Is he around? I'm like, yeah, he's right here. He's on Instagram. Deitch just sampled him, and we're making a track with the sample that he made. And she was just like, what? And then I played her a show then I would pull up a show on YouTube, like live in Houston. And she was just like blown away and flabbergasted about how cool and fun Bootsy was. And then she was reading the lyrics of the Bootsy songs, and they're the funniest, goofiest, lighthearted lyrics ever. And she was just laughing and reading through those, listening to the records. It was amazing.
Oh man, that's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. because just seeing the image of her with the records was so incredible, but to know a little bit about how that afternoon went. Right on, man. So yeah, it is a gift, that, and in a lot of ways this slowdown, even though it's a real shitty thing with people dying. And, I guess there's like that element of having to also, connect with your child and explain why life changed like that. So you have that opportunity to really like walk through that with her. And that's pretty amazing too.
It's just like, I've learned that just being around and being present, through these times, even if I don't have any answers, just makes her feel comfortable, and it's cool. So I'm just I feel lucky to be here, for this time, because I'm normally gone,
Yeah,
That's
exactly. She's never really known this like experience.
Yeah, especially this time of year is really busy for us usually. School, I'm gigging in and out. It just blows by, and then summer kind of mellows out a little bit. This is a really nice, focused, chill time to have together that, we're going to look back on this time as a gift for our relationship forever. You know what I mean?
I do
And
indeed.
it's going to bolster it. Yeah.
Right on, man. And yeah, it's tough to just talk about all the cool stuff that's happening, whatever, without acknowledging that it's, a difficult experience. But, it's important for people to hear, like on the show and in general, stories of, just connection and, silver linings that are coming out of this, confusing and uncertain time. And I was just remarking with, Bobby and Denise Deitch and Adam before that this time of year we're usually gearing up Swanee Rising, which is an amazing festival that you guys were part of the inaugural event last year, and it was of the Bear Creek family. And then of course the whole Lettuce Band is always very busy at Jazz Fest with everything outside of Lettuce, including the Rage Fest. So it is kind of a bummer to think, we're not going to get those incredible, like, familial annual hangs. But we do have the brand new Lettuce album right down the pipeline, May 8th, Resonate. And I wanted to just touch on a little bit about the record. People, when this podcast comes out, it won't have dropped yet, but you have the 3 singles out, and it's obviously chapter 2, if you will, from the sessions you did with Russ Elevado. So I want to start there. One of our earliest real conversations as we were becoming friends was about D'Angelo and voodoo and Russ Elevado and his recording techniques. And you shared a story with me about being in the studio at Electric Lady. And all these years later, Russ is at the engineering and mixing board for your last 2 records. Can you just talk a little bit about, like, how you saw or felt about Russ Elevado before you worked with him, just from that experience back in the day and all his amazing work, and why?
Yeah, we were, once we figured out who he was, which was actually just voodoo put him on the map for me. And, that the sound of that record was like no other that I had ever heard prior to that time. But it also like touched on a lot of nostalgic little things that were already in me. So it was related to a lot of things that I came from, but was just like hyper dope, and I couldn't believe how good it sounded. And I think that was one of the huge things. The sonic beauty of that record is one of the things that sets it apart. Like the songs and the music, the sonic aesthetic of that record is something that just like puts it in a league of its own. It just changed the way that I thought about our records and recording after that, because those guys obviously were doing things that came from like Zeppelin records and Jimi Hendrix records and just all the psychedelic stuff and subtle stuff that was just beautiful. Not only that, but like preserving this super hi-fi, high-quality recording of the greatest musicians in black music at the time, in my opinion. And it was just so was blown away by that, fully inspired. A dream of mine was to work with Russ Elevato from that point on, and we did it. I don't know how. We just honestly, like, Kraz ended up meeting Russ and introduced me, and I loved working with him because I recorded a Kraz record that Russ actually mixed, and I went to that mixing session and got to hang out with Russ there. And then, so when it came around that we had a chance to use Russ for the Lettuce records, you know, he knew we had a connection there, and there was some history there already.
I pray at the altar of voodoo, so I, totally get that. It is a revolutionary record even 20 years later, and yeah, it's just so, it's like manifest, man. You just put it out there into the universe, and 15-ish years later, he's able to collaborate with you. Deitch talked a little bit about this, and you mentioned it back when we did an interview around Elevate, that he has a habit in the mixing sessions of sort of shutting it down and putting on any specific kind of music that he maybe had a hand in or that he loves, and sort of relaxing the session and getting you guys to sort of decompress and then put that back into the music. How does that go? Like, he just shuts that?
Well, it was also an ear break for him. Like, it's like you're reading a song and running it back over and over again for hours and hours, like a full day, really, for one song. So, like, you get desensitized to that song, whether you think you do or not, So he realized that a long time ago. And if you want to reference things that you are, other pieces of music that are important to you, you can pull them up. And he would pull up these, like, beautiful, full quality renderings of these vinyl, first pressings, cut from his reference turntable through this unbelievable chain of converters into his thing, and he would play it and blast it on the most beautiful speakers in this perfectly built out, acoustically perfect studio outside in a pecan ranch, 3,000 acres in the middle of nowhere, and we're out looking at the stars, listening to, like, Electric Ladyland, and, like, just, like, learning so much about arrangement and sonic, like, just, like, craziness. And but it was also just a refresher. It would just wipe your palate clean, and, like, and then we'd move on to the song, and it would be like a palate refresher, It's like a little muse in the middle.
Yeah, it's effective, man. I think and I've loved, all your records, and I really feel like Elevate, just there's a extra sort of something to the texture and fabric, especially in, like, good speakers, good headphones, that you can hear exactly what you're describing with, in terms of, what he brings out of the sound and the sort of, sound design, if you will, and the hi-fi nature. Yeah. But you guys are really a dynamic band, lots of sounds, old school sort of rare groove, hard funk, space age sort of funk, lots of 70s analog synths with you and Nige. You guys really have like broadened your horizons over the past, like, say, 3 records. It's really interesting. These are companion records, but you come out the gates on Resonate with Blaze, which is a song that you've been kind of working out in the live element for a couple years now. It's such a throwback to the Lettuce that maybe people came to know years ago, as opposed to, say, Elevate starts with Trapezoid, which is like future trap funk. Was there a conscientious effort for there to be, like, a yin-yang thing there, where you're just coming from the total opposite end of the spectrum to kick things off on Resonate?
I don't know if it was, like, a full opposite, like, I don't know if that was the intention to go full opposite, but it was definitely to just, you know, kind of remind people who we are, where we came from is really like the deep funk. And then, you know, starting with trap on the first one was that, like, we have been playing hip hop since the beginning too. So I think they're both just like strong representations of who we are, but just different, just like the aesthetic that we wanted for this record. Because, you know, that Elevate record is moodier, you know, but Resonate gets moody too in its own way. It's just, it happens a little differently.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess my thinking was because the cover art is inverse, and then you start over there with Trapezoid, and then you start with Blaze. I just thought it was a really unique sort of yin and yang thing.
No, I can see that though. It's the opposite end of the spectrum for us, but it's like that's
It's still you to the core. Yeah, man. And I only had a handful of times through Resonate, and I, you know the different songs to varying degrees. We can't touch on all of them, but I did want to touch on a couple that I thought were just such a cool evolution, which let's start with Mr. Dynamite. So Mr. Dynamite, it's like you think it might be a JB's tune, but it's not. And a lot of the grooves and a lot of the stuff that you're doing in the song, we may have heard you do in between other songs for the past year or two. How did you guys sort of come up, you know, obviously in the name, it's pretty obvious it's an homage to James Brown, the Godfather, but how did you guys put that one together? So many elements, so many like little nods to pages in the JB's past.
That's actually a really good example of what Russ Elevato did for us, you know, just being there for the tracking part of the record. You know, he encouraged us to jam, and whenever we were jamming, he would hit record. He was paying attention, you know. So we were just like jamming before a take of something, and it got dope. And he had hit record, and it went on for like 20 minutes. And then later on that night, I think we had a chance to listen back to what we had done for the whole day, and that was one of the things. And we just made a note that it was cool enough to kind of like check out again. And that was literally a completely improvised jam that we ended up mixing.
Damn. It's one of my favorites. And, yeah, I just was really jazzed about it. There's so much conversation going on.
You said you heard it at shows, but like the funny thing is that we had only recorded it in the studio, and we were the only ones listening to it at home. And then we would pull it up in the middle of the Force or whatever, and just like touch on it live. But there was no recordings of it or anything like that yet. You know, I mean, we had the recording of it, but it was just the jam from the rough mixes of the session. You know.
Yeah. I knew I recognized it in there, and yeah, you guys definitely sort of would tease it and play around with it, and that bass line is undeniable. I also really, you know, we were talking the other day off the air about Earth, Wind, and Fire, and I remember, you know, everyone in the band in one time or another has said, you know, how much they adore and worship and are so influenced by Earth, Wind, and Fire. I remember when Maurice White passed away, you guys did Remember the Children that night and posed with the album cover. And you were just talking to me the other day about your favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire album with Maurice White just before he passed. Just talk a little bit about, you know, choosing this time and now to, you know, roll out your tribute and cover of Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I mean, they're just such a big part of who we are. They're a huge part of our identity, I think, individually and as a band, and they've always been just a huge inspiration because they were an actual band, and they carried themselves as a unit and a team, and they did things together. You know, there was no real, like, I mean, I know Maurice White is kind of a star, but there was no, and Philip Bailey too, but like no one really front manned that band. It was really the band, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And that's one of the things that always continues to inspire us. And musically, they're really the deepest. And we all have like experienced them since we were born, you know. So we came up listening to them, and I think their energy is just deeply embedded into us, and whenever we get a chance to cover something, we will, as long as we can do it right, which is really difficult with that music.
I love the vocal harmonies on that.
Mm. Nigel knows that music in and out, and he's also happy to embellish it a little bit if he wants to. He deserves to.
Yeah, he's been a real presence on the last two records, and obviously he's a talent that you guys have been working with for many years. But this current lineup has really coalesced into a formidable just force of nature, and I think it's exemplified on this record and the one that came before it, and Elevate, that was obviously nominated for a Grammy and much celebrated. I want to just, before we get to some non-lettuce stuff, the last song, the title track, Resonate, is another one that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing the product of a lot of stuff that you all have worked out on stage, jams, themes. Resonate is so emotional, such a just beautiful, emotional album closer. How did that one come together?
That one, Harmonic Jam, I think, if I'm correct, Deitch insisted that we had like a day off. We flew in a day early to play a gig the next day somewhere, and he was like, man, my boy has a studio somewhere. Let's just go there and we can just play. So we went there, and he had, I forget if we had to rehearse something. Maybe it was like leading up to Shaka Khan gig or something like that. But I think it was actually just like to play and just to hang out and play. So Shmeens and Jesus just started, they were warming up and tuning. And like Jesus is doing all the proper harmonics to tune the bass, like really nice. Like both of those guys can do the full harmonic range, cycle of things, and they're both doing it, and then they just start rhythmically doing it, and then it turns into this jam. And that was it. And then one of us, I think either me or Deitch, recorded it on our phones, and then it ended up becoming this thing called Harmonic Jam, and we would play it once in a while. Yeah,
it's definitely familiar, and it was on some of the shows that got released in the time period, and that's why it's familiar. It's just beautiful. I really was taken aback at just how emotional sort of landing point it was for, the journey that is Resonate. And I mean, of course, there's a lot more tracks. I love House. I love Ndugu. And we'll definitely continue.
I want to hear us get more, I want to hear more pretty moments from us, and the thing that I'm trying to encourage. So I love that we end this record with that really beautiful, unadulterated, just pretty shit.
It is so pretty, man. It really is. And I was, it was something unexpected, not for nothing. It wasn't necessarily what I'd grown accustomed to in terms of how you guys close it out. And I just think it's a very sublime way to sort of wrap it up. So I hope that, we hear more of those type of moments from you guys, because you really nailed it. I have to say it's a cruel joke, the lewd. It's such a perfect just vibe and moment and snippet. It's so brief and fleeting, but very Russ Elevado kind of thing, that just little interlude there.
Well, I got Deitch finds. Deitch had he had been combing the outtakes and things from the session, and he found this one little snippet to me as I was entering the mastering studio. So I just we pulled it up and we edited it and stuck it in there. And it really made me want to go dive deeper into that kind of thing. But I'm pretty sure that comes from, there's a 55-minute jam from the session that we did when we recorded Silence is Golden and Ndugu, Checker Wrecker, the new Blaze that's on there. That was the second time we tracked Blaze. And then, on that session, we did this 55-minute jam where we were just hanging out, playing forever. Everybody's just walking around, chilling. And we recorded the whole thing, and it's actually presentable. But I think Deitch pulled that from that. I might be mistaken, but it was something like that. It was just like one of those little outtakes that someone was smart enough to hit record on.
Yeah, it's so dope and so criminally short. And
I mean, my dream is to eventually be able to just record an improvised record, because you're going to hear mostly stuff like that. And it's going to be coming spontaneously, and you're going to experience it as a listener, and I really feel like the songs are the vehicle to get us there, but I feel like we're almost ready to just kind of hop in and just make a fully improvised record. I think that's in our near future, I think.
man, from your lips to jaw ears, I hope that we hear that someday, man. That sounds incredible. So, yeah, I want to breeze through a couple other things while I have you on the phone. Like I said, one day we'll get to really chop it up and talk about all the things. Lately, you've been doing this natural wines thing with your partner at the Lettuce Horns, Benny Bloom. A lot of people have asked me about it because they know that we're friendly and that I'm a big proponent of anything that you and Benny do. Just briefly, if you wouldn't mind, tell folks what that's about and how they can find out more.
Yeah, I mean, me and Bloom just got fired up about drinking these like really live wines that are just like unadulterated, unfiltered, organically grown, biodynamically grown, just well-produced wines that actually feel really good to drink, and you don't have a hangover. They're more like lifting than anything. They don't feel like they're taxing your body when you're drinking them. And we got into them and realized that Colorado had a limited selection of wine when we were going there, considering what we were used to in New Orleans and Maine, where I live. And so we've just asked a couple people about how to import the wines that we wanted to get in there, and we figured out how to do that. So we're distributing the wines that we like in Colorado, and they're all naturally produced and they're beautiful. And yeah, Benny's out there doing it. He's living there doing it, so it's great.
And it's Benny and Zoid selections, right?
That's right, Benny and Zoid selections. We're doing party packs. We're starting to expand our shipping capabilities, and yeah, we're doing some cool stuff. We're going to do some online tastings where I'm going to be actually playing music from my house, and it'll be live music while you taste. Everybody drinks the same bottle of wine.
Word. Well, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes, Benny and Zoid selections. I know, like, between you and Benny and my fiance, all proponents of natural wines, I'm become a bit of a fan of late, so I appreciate you, making me aware that there's a less toxic and less self-destructive way to enjoy a glass of vino or two than some.
Yeah, I mean, wine has always had this kind of stigma that it's like this pure thing that's old world, and no matter what, the bottle's fancy enough that it's gonna be that. But commercial wine making is really sketch, and people put crazy things in wine that people know about, and there's no regulation, and it's just something to pay attention to. Like, people pay attention to their food so much, it just goes. You just gotta kind of expand that, and it works with the wine too. So,
Word. Well, appreciate you putting that on our radar. A little birdie told me, and I can edit it out if I'm out of line here, that there might be a Jesus and Tycoon and Zoid project happening in some capacity.
I mean, Ty's been sending me massive amounts of music, and Jesus is on a lot of it, and yeah, it's been great. I've been just improvising over it with my synths and doing whatever I feel like doing and sending it back, and they kind of arrange it and sit with it. So I think we're going to have a record's worth of stuff. But who knows? I don't know.
Well, the people would love to hear it if it does see the light of day, and I just wanted to ask about it, just to hear if it was really a thing or just
I think Ty's pretty excited about putting like an actual record together, so I have a feeling it'll probably happen.
dope. Well, we'll definitely keep our ears peeled. And as I told you, this is kind of like a celebration of Deitch's birthday in lieu of being able to give him a birthday gift. With the album coming out, we had his parents on, and a great interview with Adam. And of course, you've been working with Adam, not just with Lettuce, but with the Adam Deitch Quartet, which is fucking bananas, incredible, that I've had the privilege of watching, sort of come to life over the past 6 years or so. You've done a number of BrkSci Live Band things and a bunch of stuff. Just, if you wouldn't mind talking about just whatever it is that draws you to create with Adam, for so long in so many capacities.
I mean, meeting Adam was one of those moments in my life that just like completely changed the trajectory of my career and vision of who I was in music. I mean, so like every drummer I played with after that first 5-week program that I met Deitch at, I was just like disappointed with, I just couldn't, it just wasn't the same. And it was kind of like it was a burden for me for a while. It was just like frustrating for me to play a gig with another drummer because it just was never as tight. So, yeah, I mean, and then I went to his parents' house, 19 years old, right before or during when we were at our first year at Berkeley. And it was this like normal ranch house and such a super neat setup, a piano when you walk in, in the corner, instruments everywhere, but not like they hadn't taken over the first floor of the house when you walk in. It just seemed really normal. And then we have breakfast with Bobby and Denise, and we go down, we're like listening to all this cool jazz, and Denise is singing the solos, and then finish breakfast, and we all go downstairs and we jam for like an hour and a half, just like bass, drums, 2 drum kits, congas, keys, everything set up and ready to go, And that point on, I was just like so. My perspective of music and life and learning and just like what the actual epitome of like the American dream was it got flipped upside down at that point, Also just being around Deitch when I lived in New York, we were, he'd be making beats, and I would just go hang out with him when he had his apartment on 25th Street in Manhattan, and then in Greenpoint, he was just like making massive amounts of music constantly. So as much time as I had to go out, I could do it and learn a lot. So there was a good part of my life there where I was just like, from the dude who's just making the most crazy amounts of music all the time, and it was just hard to keep up with, but he was always inviting me in to be a part of it. So just lucky to know that guy, and
That's awesome, man. That's a really just wonderful reflection and just a look inside of the embryonic connect between you and Adam, of course, his parents, and in light of the fact that they're all on this episode,
the way that they approach teaching and inviting people into music is on such a high level, and it all comes from love, really, and positive encouragement, and positive reinforcement, and they're the masters of that, and Deitch is a perfect example of what that energy can empower in a kid, So they exposed him to so much music and so much good energy that, you hear it in everything that he's doing. And he's producing so much music. None of us know I can't even imagine what the vaults of Deitch music has come to at this point. Someone needs to get in there and make sure this is all backed up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, once again, from your lips to jaw ears, and hopefully Adam's, and maybe you can have someone back that up if it isn't already. But that was just such an amazing way for us to wrap up that normally I ask a question at the end. I'm just going to give you the abbreviated version. Is there any music that's really getting you through the quarantine? Is there a record or a song or an artist that you want to tell the people they should check?
Man, so many records. But, I have a really nice pressing of Still Bill. And the day Bill Withers passed, I just started running it. And I've been just trying to put myself in a place where, you're putting a record together that's just incredibly monumental in American music at that time, and that record's been really inspiring lately. And then I've been also watching that band. There's a performance of them right after that record came out. It's one of the few performances of Bill Withers live. It's on YouTube. James Gadsden, and those guys are playing those songs with so much heart and soul. And it's to me, it's like the apex of American music at that time. And Bill Withers was able to capture that in such a classy, cool way, and that wasn't sensationalized. And I've really just been digging into that, honestly.
Right on, man. That's awesome that, you've been reconnecting with that. Yeah, truly, like you said, monumental piece of work that's stood the test of time, like really few albums, period. So I think that's a great way for us to go out.
Yeah, I'm down.
Man, I wish we were seeing each other in Swanee and New Orleans, but man, it was just such a joy to rap with you for, 40 plus minutes. I feel like we just scratched the surface, and we'll have to do it again, hopefully in person, but I know that people really appreciate you opening up, and I know it's late there on 420, so you're probably ready to call it.
Oh, man, I'm having a great time talking to you, man. Anytime.
Right on, brother. Well, it's, again, an honor, a privilege, man. I want to say on the air that you're really one of my most treasured friends, and I mean that. And it's not something I say lightly. You've always been like a fucking bro to me since really we first connected, and I've learned a lot from you, and I really value our friendship. And besides being the biggest fan of you as an artist, I love you. So thank you.
Thanks, B. I love you too. I love your knowledge of the art, and I really respect, your approach to it, and I'm always excited to talk to you about it, because it's always an exciting, fun back and forth. It isn't just a one-way thing. So,
well, I appreciate that, man. Right on, man. Well, take care of yourself. Much love to you and your daughter, and of course the band and the crew. And we look forward to the Resonate dropping. Just a few days after this drops, it'll come out, and
yeah. Yes.
Then we can talk about it some more, and jaw willing, we can dance to it live and direct sometime soon.
Yeah, what'd you think of that Toy On record?
Oh, dude, great. And I was going to say thank you for putting me on. It's really awesome, and that it's just such a snapshot in time for like a dancehall artist before it got super aggressive and sort of cheesy. It's like that mid '80s vibe.
He's so positive too. He's so great.
Yeah, I was totally unawares. That was another one of those things. Yeah,
he's tough, but he's positive the whole time. It's great. Love that dude. Funky. funky as ever.
Yeah,
And
man.
it's early scientists, you know. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry
man. No sorries, man. We take all the gems you care to share, man. And I was so grateful. I came back to Alicia. I'm like, yo, Toyon, we got to bump it right now. It said Zoid's favorite dancehall record of all time. And yep,
Out West Was One is the record, man. It's amazing.
right on, man. Well, yeah, I know you're an archaeologist, and you know, maybe one of the next times that we talk for the pod, we can dive deep into the island vibes. ITAL, like you know, they say ITAL is vital, LOTAL is fatal. So, with that,
That's right.
we'll catch up soon, my friend. Thanks again, dude. You're the man.
All right, D. I'll talk to you soon, man. Peace.
Peace. Yes, indeedy. Want to say thank you to my man, RYAN ZOIDIS. That was incredible, and I am so grateful that you took the time and got on the vine deep into the 420 night out there in Portland, Maine, and chopped it up like we just did. So, a third deep bow of gratitude in order. RYAN ZOIDIS, we love you. Now, like we always do about this time, the Vibe Junkie Jam of the Week is upon us. This has been a super long episode, so I'm not going to wax philosophic like I did last week. Conveniently enough, last week I told a 10-plus minute story about Break Science, Adam's project with Borum Lee, and played a few tracks, including the Vibe Junkie Jam of the Week, Once in a While acoustic. But I could not have an Adam Deitch birthday extravaganza without a little Break Science, so you're hearing Android Love, a beloved track from their last full-length LP, Grid of Souls. Check out their new living room mix that they just put out on their different networks and socials. Pretty sweet, kind of vibey, housey thing, and wanted to make sure that we show love to my man Borum Lee, because one day we want to have him on the Upful Life Podcast too. I'm a huge fan of everything he does. You can check him out doing a duo routine with Benny Bloom on live streams during the quarantine. But for the Vibe Junkie Jam of the Week, we're going to use the two tracks that Adam referenced in his interview. House of Let, off of Lettuce's forthcoming full-length album Resonate, May 8th. It's the third single. You can hear it on all their channels and networks as well. And of course, Space Dust, from Adam Deitch's forthcoming solo electronic production effort entitled The Age of Imperfection, coming soon. Played a lot of that material in that Sofa King Fest live stream that I referenced and played earlier. This is Android Love, Break Science, featuring Lettuce. I'm your host, B. Getz. This is the Upful Life Podcast. This episode covered me in a good dream. Love each other, love yourselves, live your Upful Life, and we'll see you next week.